We'll bring in another stranger. I've never met this guy before.
Yeah,
No,
right.
I'm kidding, actually, of course. This is Dan Keelan.
Hey,
Matt and I know him well. Matt is one of my business partners. And one of the things that we've been developing because it's white hot industry is we cover the business of cannabis, as opposed to, we're going to, although on one show we will tell you what products are popular, but that's not really our focus. It's really on business. And now that we've been in it for a couple of years, we can see where there's gaps and what more things are needed. And Dan came up with this idea, so I'll let him explain it. It's not my idea, it's his. So tell us all about it, Dan.
great, thanks. So a little background, we've been publishing the Michigan Marijuana Report for, gosh, just about
Couple
3 years now.
years, yeah,
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
years.
We launched it the spring after the referendum in Michigan that legalized recreational marijuana. So it has started quite a lot of businesses, right? And in a weird way, what a strange few years, because here are people doing startup work, many of them with business backgrounds that were quasi-legal, right? Just because the product wasn't legal.
That's gentle the way you put that, but yeah, go ahead. So
Add to that the pandemic.
mhm.
So we have seen some gaps. When Mike and I started the project, we thought of it as a business to business publication. And that's kind of the way it's gone, although a large percentage of our readers are consumers, and many of them aren't consumers or business people. They're consumers who are business people. So a year ago, a year and a half ago, Mike actually started pushing to do a Wednesday 1 hour broadcast. So we started 420 Post. So 420 Post became the video extension, or became the show extension of the website and publication. Anyway, for the past few months, we've been trying to corral, where is everybody? Who's who? Where are the businesses? Kind of what's the database? And what really drove this Flora idea is that for a lot of people, there are the business opportunities you don't think of. People might right away think of a dispensary where I would go buy the product. But what about the law firm that's advising them, or the accounting folks that they need? And then what about all the tourism? So where do I go that's cannabis friendly if I'm looking for a hotel or a venue or a nightclub or a hotel? And that information is out there, but it's not easy to get to, and it's not in one place. So if you go to EnjoyFlora.com, we just put this page up about a week ago, and right now it's a form. We're asking anybody who's involved directly or tangentially in the industry to go ahead and get a free listing. Tell us who you are, tell us where you are. It's all going to turn into basically a searchable database. We're doing a lot with companies in Michigan, so I expect a lot of the content to be Michigan based, but the idea really is for it not to have a boundary. And if we do it right, and if it grows, then next time you're in Colorado, you should be able to go to the website and search for the hotel or the diner that you want to visit,
Or the bar or whatever. Yeah.
right?
So I mean, part of it is cannabis tourism per se, but at the same time, and this is such a nascent industry. There's 19 states that have legalized it, and many of those are very recent. There's, of course, the veterans like Oregon, California, Colorado.
Yep.
They've been around for a long time, but it's such a new area, and there's so much going on that it's hard to keep track of all that stuff going on
It
and
is.
all the new businesses that are entering the space. And the other bugaboo is probably until cannabis is descheduled by the federal government, a lot of these businesses, no matter what you tell them, are just not going to embrace it because they're paranoid about the feds coming down on them.
Right, right.
Even though it's legal in the state, technically, I suppose if the feds wanted to get nasty, they could, but I don't think they have time for that. But
I think you're right. You're right, Mike. But what's funny is I think a lot of what we're trying to do as we're impersonating smart business people is think ahead, is do some things in anticipation of what we think is going to happen. So we anticipate that recreational cannabis is going to be legal nationally, which means it's going to be good news and bad news, right? It means the banking system will be able to work with these businesses. It might mean that the big players edge out some of the small players who have grown up in the niche that's created because it's not legal everywhere. But we're kind of placing our bets on the idea that it's going to go national, that we're still in the early days. So the Marijuana Report, which is about Michigan, generates the show. The show helps us figure out that we need a list. As an aside, right now, we're also building a training platform because training and certification is something that as an industry comes together and matures, those kinds of things become expected and a little more standardized. So about half of what Mike and I do in that world, I think we're doing in anticipation of where the industry is going. And the other half we're doing dealing with what's happening today.
Matt?
All right. So, you talked about tourism and job creation. I just wanted to point out something that I thought was interesting. I still subscribe to a former long ago employer of mine, the Leelanau Enterprise, a little country weekly newspaper up in Leelanau County.
Yeah.
And they recently got their first dispensary in Leelanau County in the little village of Northport.
Right.
At the very tip of the peninsula. And it's created 9 new jobs. Now that might not sound like a lot, but in a village of 400 and some people, that's kind of a big deal. And it's right. Not like they need help with tourism up there, but I'm sure that's going to have an effect. And I think you're going to see more and more of this. There are some municipalities, like unfortunately the one I live in Dearborn, that have said no to this preemptively.
Yeah.
But as they see money and jobs coming in, and especially as they see the more industrial side of cannabis, I think I really think opinions are going to change. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I do too. And as you know, I live a couple blocks from Matt in Dearborn, so I was disappointed, but I think it's going to change too, because it's related to jobs. People will see the economic opportunity. I have family that lives on the east side in Grosse Pointe. Right on Mack Avenue, across from their nice little neighborhood, is a new cloud cannabis business that's opening up and has a help wanted sign. And all those Grosse Pointers are going to cross the street and go to that dispensary, and some of them are going to get jobs there. So I think it'll sink in. It's a cultural thing for sure that takes a while for people to figure out. I think the figuring out gets accelerated when you can make the business development, the tourism, the effect that it's going to have on your tax base, the effect that that's going to have on your neighborhood being a nice place or a crappy place to move into. And it's connected to a reality of Michigan from a tourism point of view overall, which is we're not a drive-through state. You don't accidentally find yourself crossing the Mackinac Bridge. You come to Michigan on purpose. Right. And so that's always been true. And people involved in Michigan tourism have always thought about that and factored that into the way they think about the state. But if you think about folks from the surrounding Midwest states thinking of a place to go for the weekend that's cannabis friendly, where cannabis is legal, people from Chicago, would think, oh, there's another reason to go to Kalamazoo. Right. So it's all of it, to me, speaks to job creation, speaks to tax base, speaks to tourism.
Yeah,
mainstreamed.
We don't have the final numbers yet, not the end of the year, but we're going to have Andrew Brisboe on our other show, who is the head of the Marijuana Regulatory Agency, excuse me. But we're guessing it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 billion in adult sales in Michigan this year, give or take. And the way it is now, 16% of every dollar goes to some taxing authority. So if it's $2 billion, it's $320 million in taxes some entity in the state is getting. And equally important,
equally important to me, and I don't think people talk about this enough, that's $2 billion that didn't go to the cartels, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that didn't go
Right.
to criminals. So
Right.
that do horrible things to people.
Right.
So legalization has a host of benefits.
It does.
Yes, not to mention the tax side, and they're guessing next year it'll double again to 4 billion. Because there are a lot of what's called multi-state operators moving in, and there are some local players. For instance, the Bell Tire people are behind Loom. Loom currently has 30 dispensaries open, and over the next 2 years, they plan to have 70 more. So it's all that Bell Tire money is being funneled
Yeah.
into the cannabis industry.
Well, now I was gonna say, now I know why that tire has such a deep voice, right?
That's it. Yeah. So if you get green tires at Bell Tire, then you'll know, right? So, but they're one of the big players. Then we also have 4 or 5 other very large players. And there's already the consolidation's already begun. Just a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago, there was 3 large cannabis companies that got acquired by other players, and so already the consolidation has begun. The big money, and what everyone's saying is, if we get or when we get to legalization or descheduling, whatever it's going to be, then you're going to see big tobacco move in, big liquor move in, big everything move in, because everyone sees the same thing. This is a huge market, so.
Yep. And I know some people will argue that that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's kind of like a big beer distributor buying up my favorite craft beer,
Bell's in Kalamazoo would be a good example of that.
Yeah.
So
But not the end of the world. And the last thing I would say is, for anyone that worries about legitimacy, if there wasn't something legitimate going on from a business point of view, Mike and I wouldn't have a Michigan Marijuana Report full of news every week, wouldn't have an hour-long show. This database wouldn't be filling up. We wouldn't be considering building this learning platform for certification. So the experience that we're having, even though it's kind of like rocky sometimes because you're trying to figure out the smart next thing to do, there's a lot going on. And that to me speaks to the messiness that would come with any new industry, especially when it's associated with people kind of, turning their head and going, I live in Dearborn. Do I really want this business here? So I think over time, though, sanity, the ability to get a job, make a buck, grow a business will win out.
To be determined.
To be determined.
Certainly.
So EnjoyFlora.com. That's why I'm here. If you're related, if you're a business person at all related to this industry, please go to EnjoyFlora.com, fill out the form. We're going to
free listing, right? So
free listing. We're going to, after the first of the year, we're going to, at some point, we're going to, release version 2 of the website, which will be a searchable database of all the companies that sign up. So please take a minute and do that. And if you're at all interested, go to MIMarijuanaReport.com. You can see the news. You can see a link to the 420 post show. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you can see a link to the Flora website. And you can get in touch with me through the site. Yeah,
one of the things that another one of these Dan projects, because he has that background, he's been working with the Dale Carnegie people for a long time, is this academy that we're going to be moving forward on, and probably in the first quarter of next year.
Yep.
We're talking to our buddy Anthony Sabatella at THC 123, because one of the things that sparked this was Anthony was saying, I get 1,000 resumes a week from people, but they don't have any experience. They don't have any training. How do I place these people? Right. So we're trying to work with him and to get some kind of certification program where, they get the basic training from us. Then they move to the top of the resume stack for Anthony, and he gets him a job. So,
Hey, and Mike, if I've got 30 more seconds,
maybe go ahead.
A plug for that. 420academy.com. Anyone that's interested in anything career related, go there. Submit your name and a question. We're building a database that are trying to pre-register for the training. So anybody that signs up early is going to get a discount on the training. And imagine if you're trying to further your career or get into the industry, you want your 420 Academy badge on your LinkedIn profile. You want that to be something that sets you apart. maybe the job you get requires certification or recertification, especially if you're dealing with the public or if you're in something that's highly complicated, like hemp farming, right? So as we get into this, there's lots of training and certification that'll help people. Again, it's a jobs thing. It'll help you individually. Anyway, anyone who's interested, 420academy.com, give us your name and address, and we'll keep you on the list.